one.
It's so good.
The blueberry one's tight. Jeff has been really jealous of my collection of Diet Coke flavors. He actually had me arrange them all in order of which one was worst to best.
Where do you get blueberry one? In Canada?
No.
Yeah, you can get it in the States as well.
Oh, okay.
Ben has some.
I do. I could go get one right now. Anyway, welcome to Practical Shooting After Dark. My name's Ben. We're here to take care of shooting questions in our typical fashion. You guys know the rules. Everybody comes here with a topic to talk about. You know, something you did this week in shooting, something exciting, something to show and tell, something that triggers you, makes you angry. Maybe you had a run-in with a BOC at your range. I'd like to talk about it. Never know.
Yeah, a friend of mine did. He actually videoed it. It was pretty entertaining.
That was your friend who put it?
Yeah.
Did he send it to me on Instagram?
Yes, he's a friend of mine. He's in training group.
Okay, yeah, I reposted it. I thought that was...
That was funny. Yes, he's from my club. He's a good dude.
That was the guy's, the BOC's opener was just coming over. Like, he's like...
I see where your targets are there.
Like 50 feet away. And it's just like, see where your targets are. He's like, huh? What? Like, what is
Yeah.
All right, so as listeners can probably tell, on deck today we've got Mr. Joel Park, as usual, old reliable.
Yeah. When all else fails, just
when
call
all
me.
else fails, Joel's like my after dark booty call. Old reliable. Always ready.
I knew you were gonna go there.
And the guy cackling like a hyena, Mr. Jeff Chang.
Hello, everyone.
From the Great White North. Well, I mean, I also live in the Great White North right now, but you're more north.
Yep.
And less white, I guess. No, because it's snowing here right now. Never mind. And Mr. Kim. Excellent to have you.
Hello. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you. Okay. Anyway, let's get into it. Mr. Jeff, you wanna lead off today with the topic?
It's a show and tell. And honestly...
Is it the blueberry Diet Coke?
Well, you know what? I can plug that real quick. For those listening, I am holding a can of blueberry acai Diet Coke, and this shit is amazeballs.
Didn't I tell you it was good?
You did, and you're 100% accurate.
I prefer Powerade Zero. That's my jam, but...
You've never had that. Never had it, Joel.
All right, fine.
But what I do have, actually, I think Joel showed his about 5-6 months ago. I finally got myself one.
Yes.
Paster
It's
gun.
a Paster gun.
Nice.
Where did you get yours?
I got mine here in Canada. It's from a dealer here, but you can get them from many places, including the Pro Shop.
You don't have to. You don't have to pump up the Pro Shop. There's no margin in those things anyway.
Oh.
It's a game changer. If you don't have one, there's no reason not to have one. That's really it. But I mean, I'm a pretty cheap dude, so dropping the money on this guy was a little bit.
You're like Joel. You're annoyingly cheap.
Nothing wrong with that, man.
I'm kind of hurt to drop the money on it initially, but you know what? I'm actually saving money on targets. It makes the targets last a lot longer, so I don't have to worry about.
What you're saying.
Well, for me, I think it's about when you're practicing, and I don't have all day. If I want to go pound away, or if you're doing, I don't know, like if you shoot 3 or 4 strings or something, you got a bunch of shots in the target. You just walk up and you just like hammer those out without. Well, maybe I'll just leave the alphas because I want to save time. You don't have to do that at all. You just, patch those bad boys up.
Because up here in Canada, we still use a lot of tape instead of patches. So maybe after a short little while, you get those little bits of tape sticking out and all the little danglies, and I end up having to replace targets pretty often because it's quite distracting. So this guy saves targets.
Awesome.
All right.
Plus, if your friends don't have it, then you can show them like, oh, here, watch this.
I mean, the first thing I did is write my name on it because people are trying to steal it already.
That's like 80% of the point is to have it to annoy other people, isn't it?
That's true of everything.
Well, it's true of a lot of things.
Yep.
All right, Mr. Kim.
Yes.
Yes.
I have a shooting stuff.
You have a shooting stuff. Okay.
So, yes, on training group, I was helping this guy to make the split speed faster. So he wasn't able to shoot under like .2 splits, which anybody should be able to if
Remind
you
me where
have.
this was. Was this one of the private guys?
Yes.
Okay.
So he posted the picture of his grip and like the finger, blah blah blah. So a lot of people think in terms of finger placement a lot. So a lot of people on the market, if you look at like magazines that don't really know about shooting very much, but they tell people to have the fingertip or the pad contacting the middle of the trigger. So a lot of people try to get that fingertip directly on the trigger. But everybody has different finger size, and if somebody try to do that, you'll have to back off your index finger out in order to make that fingertip contact. What happens that way? So basically, if you do this experiment, you will know what I'm talking about. If you just relax your hands are naturally curled a little bit. If you really completely relax your fingers are not straight. It naturally curls. That's where your hand is completely relaxed. However, if you lift your fingers or any one finger, let's say trigger finger, if you lift your finger up to like straighter line and lift your finger up, you will quickly feel the tension on your back of your hand. So the more you lift your finger, you're going to have more tension, which is going to be really not be able to pull the finger fast. So the longer the finger is and try to keep that fingertip contact to the trigger, you'll have to lift up your finger more, which will create more tension.
Okay, hold on. Back up. Just so
Yes.
make sure we catch it. What exactly is the experiment again? Go one more time with it.
Yes. So bottom line is if you want to pull the trigger really fast, like 14 splits, whatever like that,
How about
then
12?
you need to 12, absolutely 12, 15, 20, those split numbers. Like what is it, jailbait split number, whatever.
Yeah.
there's-
If you want that,
Well, I want
That's
pedo splits.
kind of beyond jailbaits. Yeah.
I want
Okay.
pedo splits, baby.
okay. If you want pedal splits,
Oh my
you need to
gosh.
maintain your hand completely relaxed. And then in the beginning of my shooting career, I was also putting the fingertip on the trigger guard, and I believe that that was the way to pull the trigger straight back, but it's not true. So right now, as I was developing the trigger speed, I am focusing on the hand tension and just leave the finger position wherever I feel the hand most relaxed, which is naturally curled. If you lift up, you're going to have tension. So basically, you need to focus on that finger position where you feel relaxed, not the fingertip on the trigger or specific position of your finger on the trigger. The focus should be maintaining your hand shape in a relaxed position. So naturally slightly curled, the more you lift up, you're going to be able to, you're not going to be able to pull the trigger fast. And my finger actually contacts the trigger, not the tip. The placement of my finger is actually deeper, like past the first joint is actually really deep in there. I don't care where it actually contacts in terms of my finger placement. I want to maintain that finger relaxation so my finger is not lifted at all. And I am just pulling, it's not focused on that finger placement, but leaving the finger position where it's relaxed. Makes sense, right?
Yes, got it.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter where it's placed. You should be able to
Got
pull
it.
the trigger straight back wherever.
Okay, Mr. Joel.
Yes.
I like it. What we've discussed here in the past, that playing what if in a public way isn't really beneficial to
I
anyone.
think we call it IFSIC.
Yeah. But I want to talk about playing what if to gain a better understanding of the sport in kind of a private way, just like learning. So
All right, so just to back up to make sure everybody understands, when you say what if, you mean like, well, if I hadn't, like messed up that reload and then shot that miss and my dog ate my homework, I'd have won that match. You find that done, especially in public, to be sort of rude.
I do, because I would say that takes away from the person that won.
Right. And then if
Like
we really,
it's like
then if we really
like saying you didn't deserve to win. Like you didn't deserve to win. I should have won, but I had 2 deltas, a mic, a no shoot, and I dropped a magazine.
and
So you
dog
won,
ate your
but
homework.
yeah, but you really didn't deserve to win. That should have been me. And here I can manipulate the scores to show you why I should have won.
Right. You know, what would be really fun to do is to look at the winner and be like, hey, look, if he hadn't made those mistakes, he'd have won by even more.
Yes. I may have made that comment one time to somebody that was playing What If, and that person didn't really appreciate it, but
Well, why not?
I don't know. It didn't go over very well.
We're just talking about hypotheticals, man.
I know. So anyway, the Practice Score Competitor app is what we're talking about. Is quite good, and it allows you to manipulate the scores of match results to see what your scores could have been or how much something cost you. So it won't help you at the match, but I think it's a good way to gather data for the future. So like an example would be if you shoot to slide lock and your last shot's a miss on a popper, so you don't get the penalty for not engaging it. So is the correct answer to leave it? Should you reload and shoot it? If you did the reload and hit the steal in like 1.4 seconds, is that like better or worse? Is that worth it? You know, what if you had a miss and it took you like an extra shot after the load? You know, what's the point of where you're doing more harm than good? So, or how much does a delta or a mic cost you? That kind of deal. So it won't help you in the instant on the stage, but I think that's good just to have a better understanding of the scores and kind of to give you more information for the future. You know what could happen, and I think it's good.
So you're talking about for the purposes of understanding the game, you should understand what cost you how much.
Yeah, or like maybe a field course, you really just like run the train on these guys on time, but you drop 15 Charlies. And it's like, well, maybe the next guy beat you and he shot, you know, a slower time, but he got the alphas. Like, okay, well, how much did all those points you dropped really cost you? You know?
Yeah. So what common misconceptions would you say there are?
Getting that little bit of extra speed, like you're 1 second faster, but you have just a crazy amount of Charlies, is not worth it. Depending on your division, I suppose. For production, you know, like you need the A's. You can't miss fast enough to win. Maybe if you're shooting limited or a major power factor, you don't need to be getting all those A's that you think you do. Dropping some C's is fine because you need the speed.
I think I think misses are less damaging in limited, or less damaging in production than limited. If you think about it, a miss is 15 Charlies.
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think it's good just to do that afterwards. Just like what could have been, what should you do for next time? Maybe if you're leaning too far one way or the other, too heavy in points, or way too off the pace for speed.
Fair enough. Well,
Yeah.
Joel, interesting. So you're playing around with the competitor, but so you're not posting this on the internet, is what you're saying? It's just sort of
Absolutely not.
informational for you.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Joel, the topic you've given me for myself tonight, because I'm just coming off another interview, so I don't really didn't have time to prepare for this because I'm irresponsible. You're going to talk about people's expectations for classes. And
Yeah.
you know what? I think that's good, but I'm going to go with a different angle than what you went with.
All right.
Right. Still
Do
expectations.
you, man.
So I am going to do me. You'll like this better. So
Okay.
I could talk about my classes specifically. I imagine other people's classes are very much the same way. But there's a couple, like as far as what your expectations should be to get out of a class, I could talk about that. But then also sort of your expectations about what you need to have going into a class, or, you know, that's also an interesting thing to talk about. So kind of my goal for somebody coming to a class, or what you'd like to see them get, is an idea of what it is they can do to improve. You know, it doesn't have to be a lot of stuff. You'd be like, hey, I need to work on this, this, and this. And this is the way that I can practice on this, and this is how I can get better in the future. Not really expecting people to get a whole lot better over the couple days of a class. That can happen, but that's not really something I expect, or you realistically should expect, especially if you're really good or you're really ingrained in your habits. As far as what you should bring to a class, people ask a lot, like, hey, what classification should I be for XYZ class? I don't really think that matters a whole lot. It's more about do you understand the safety rules that before you can even be in the be in a class, you have to. I mean, probably the easiest screening mechanism is say, have you shot a few USPSA matches? If you have, then I presume you know the safety rules. You can get through the match without DQing. You understand at least a little bit about scoring and about what stages are and kind of what it is you're trying to do. That's really important. As far as the difference between C class, B class, D class, I don't know that that's really important. And even, well, Joel, even the master class guys, I'm not sure, or GM guys, I'm not sure how much that really matters because of the way the classes are structured. I don't know if that's really the super important thing. Those guys just get coached to the better you are, the smaller the details are for what you're going to get feedback on. But
yeah, you change the expectations based on the shooter,
yeah,
but the material you're delivering is the same.
Well, I'll give you an example. Maybe you remember this. I put up 90 minutes of footage from a fundamentals class inside Training Group, and a guy emailed me as like, "Hey, I watched all that footage, so I think I should just take like a more advanced class." Why, you're shaking your head no, Joel?
Yeah, well, like,
Well, the guy's master class.
no matter how good you are, you could be better, and that's
Well, that and from my thinking is if you're looking at fundamentals, if you're looking at kind of the exercises done in that and what the feedback is and what the assessment is, you're not going to get anything there's not really like insanely advanced stuff going on in the more advanced classes like skills and drills. It's just more specific stuff. I wouldn't say it's more advanced. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So a lot of people are like, "Hey, I'm master class. I want to do more advanced stuff," and you know that's not really the way I function as a shooter, and that's not really the way that the training or the exercises we do, the drills are do. It doesn't really work that way. People think it does, but it's not like, "Hey, I've graduated from marksmanship fundamentals. I've graduated from target transitions. Now I'm going to do this whole new type of advanced shit that I don't even know about it, but like that's what I want to do." Like
Yeah.
that's not really a thing. You're smiling too, Jeff. You've organized some classes. You meet a lot of people with those ideas in their head, don't you?
Oh yeah,
Yeah. So
absolutely.
yeah, the advanced class is like it's different. It's crazy stuff I haven't even thought about, but yeah, I mean it's not a stupid idea. I understand why you would think that, but that's just not really the way things work. The more advanced classes, I think, like the screening mechanism I tell the organizers to use is like, does this guy practice a lot? Like if somebody's dry firing 5 days a week and live firing twice a week and they have been in the sport for a year and training really heavily for 8 months, that person fits right in like skills and drills class with the more advanced group, just because they're training all the time, they're really deep in it, and they'll fit in there. Whereas a guy who's, I mean, I've met some like well-trained guys, like they've been shooting for 20 years, they're in A class, but they haven't gotten better in 10 years and they don't practice regularly. Those guys, I mean, they're probably not as well set up for the skills and drills class just because they haven't been really doing shit for 10 years, so they're not really heavy in training. Even though they're probably among the top 5% of their club, they do really well, they've been around a long time, but by my reckoning, they don't really fit in a more specific class for people that train all the time and want to train a lot to get better. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I've watched you like talking to people about the classes, because I organize classes. They're like, well, I don't want to be in the fundamentals class. I don't want to learn how to draw and reload. And I'm like, bro, like I was in basically M class when I took a fundamentals. Well, even this last, I could be in the fundamentals class at any skill level and get my soul crushed, because you are going to expect more out of me than maybe somebody that's just starting out in the sport, or you're gonna change your expectations based on their skill level. But there's something to learn at any classification, which classification doesn't even really matter. Let's be honest.
Yeah, and and as far when people ask what it is that I'm doing in training or Hwansuk's doing in training, the drills that we do they're not necessarily easy, but they're really simple. We're not working on anything crazy. Just like grip the gun right, shoot the gun straight. Have really solid transitions, aggressive movement, but controlled on the starts and stops and that sort of stuff. I don't want to say that any of it's simple, and a lot of the times the way that different skills overlap is a little bit hard to figure out. But all the stuff you're working on, it's not like it's not exactly rocket science. A lot of it, I should say. So as far as people's expectations for what shooting classes are, it's like I understand why people think what they do if they haven't taken a class with me, or if they've taken classes with other people that have different ideas for how things get organized. But that's not the way the classes with me work. And I imagine it's similar for you, huh, Juanza?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, the performance jump that somebody's gonna have by working on fundamentals is way greater than something advanced.
And by I mean advanced really means like more specific.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
And I like what you said about expectations also, because I had to have like the reality check last year with like, you're not going to be a whole new person in 2 days. What you are getting is like a plan, an actionable plan for getting better. You're getting the things that you're doing wrong, like specific things to work on, and then a plan to improve those. But you have to do the work to get better. You might see some, like depending on how much you shoot, let's say shooting 2,000 rounds is a lot because that's more than you shoot in months. Then if you shoot 2,000 rounds in 2 days, yes, you're going to see a jump. But for people that practice all the time or you practice regularly, then you're getting a plan, an actionable plan of what to work on going forward. But you're not going to be a new person in 2 days. It takes time.
Yeah, that's it. And then I guess the other question, I think making me uncomfortable is the right word. When people are like, hey, I have X dollars. Should I do this area match or should I do a class? It's like, I mean, I don't know. That depends on you and your goals and what it is you want to do and what that money means to you. You know what I mean? Like, this is what you get out of a class. Like, if you've been to 25 area matches in your life and your shooting's been stagnant for 3 years, I don't know that you're going to get a lot of performance out of an area match. If you do classes, I know guys that do classes with somebody every couple months, but they've never shot an area match. It's like, dude, go to the area match. You know, so you have to like. That'd be just my opinion. If people are uncomfortable spending money on classes, like, don't ask me what to do because I'm not going to push you to take a class because I don't want to be. If money's tight or time is tight, like, go do something else because I don't want to be responsible for you having a bad time or having a lot of expectations.
Yeah. And then I don't know if you're going to go there or not, but also I would just point out, make sure your gear works before you show up to a class. Like if you have like, make sure your gun's reliable, make sure your gun's sighted in. Like this sounds dumb.
No, it's not.
Make sure your gun's dumb. Make sure your gun's sighted in. Make sure it's reliable. Make sure you have extra ammo. If you have spare parts, like bring that with you. Extra fibers. Like just take all that stuff with you. Because if you need you invest this time in class or your time off work or whatever your situation is, and you get there and you have a gun that like the sight's broken or the front sight's missing or I can't figure this out or my magazines don't work or whatever.
That happens. I mean, somebody's gun breaks on average. Somebody will have a gun be effed in every class. On average, one person a class.
Yeah, and that's just like that's disappointment and distraction you don't need.
Well, yeah, if you have another gun of the same model, that's not really a huge deal. You're just like, oh, I'll just get rid of this one. You can go get rid of it and you change it. If that's like the only gun you possess, yes, that will be an issue. You're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah. So clean it, make sure it works, make sure you have it reasonably sighted in.
Have some realistic expectations.
It should be a good spot to learn. Yeah.
Yes. All right, guys, let's move on to an email question. Hi, Ben. While watching Gaston video, the hit factor one, he quickly gave 2 different scenarios of hit factor. Besides match experience, what other things can we do to get that calculator mind towards determining hit factor? Should we practice stages to develop that aspect? Please use examples as if you were a B-class production shooter. And now, there's some back and forth with this guy. I asked what he meant by examples. So what do you mean? Because I'm thinking, like, what do you mean as if I'm a B-class shooter? And he said, okay, so he clarifies. A 5 hit factor stage for B-class would be a 9 hit factor stage for GM. Am I right in that way of thinking, he asks, or not? So, there. I mean, the question's a little strange, but I think think there's some good ways to address it. Before we get into it, though, I want to point out what he's talking about, because most listeners are not training group members. I posted a video of Gaston, my friend and yours, guys, explaining hit factor aiming strategy, or aiming strategy as it relates to what the hit factor of the stage is. Is that a fair description?
Yep.
For those of you that watched it, I don't know if you all did.
Of course I did.
Yeah, so I wanted to get Gaston's best. So in the couple weeks I spent shooting with him, we discussed a lot of things, and we ended up making 2 videos. One of them was this aiming strategy one, because he has he likes talk. He's been shut the fuck up about it, honestly. He just keeps going all the time. So he likes talking about it. He's got a pretty good approach. And what he ended up essentially explaining was, you have a wish zone on the target, or a target zone, which is usually a little bigger than the A zone, right? So depending on the division and what the stage is, so like major, minor, and kind of how fast of a stage it is, or how many, is it more of a high hit factor stage where you can lose a few points and it doesn't hurt that bad, or a low hit factor stage. So basically, the size of your aiming area expands or contracts based on those factors. Okay, it's either a little bit bigger than the A zone, or it's a lot bigger than the A zone, not quite to the D zone. Is that a fair description?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
But the particulars of this involves you knowing what the hit factor of the stage is. Like, so if I can't look at a stage and know, oh, this looks like a 8, 9, 10 hit factor, like a relatively high hit factor stage, it's going to be pretty fast. So I want to adjust my strategy accordingly, versus looking at a stage and being like, okay, there's a lot of movement stuff dragging the hit factor down. This looks like about a 3, 4 hit factor stage. I don't want to be giving up any Charlies I don't have to, so I'm going to tighten it up a little bit. Okay, so this guy's asking, how do I figure that out? So I'm going to take his questions in pieces. First, we'd address, how do we figure out the hit factor of a stage just looking at it? His suggestion about setting up stages to practice them does not seem like a good idea to me, in my opinion. So, anybody else have a suggestion? Jeff, you're pretty smart, dude. Almost as smart as Joel, actually. So, what would you suggest?
I think that's where live fire practice really comes in, and you have to know, based off of target distances, what you can expect from yourself and what you're capable of, and then you string that together with a stage walkthrough and just have a general sense of how long it takes to navigate the actual stage itself.
Yeah.
And if possible, watching the squad ahead of you shoot. Right? You watch people ahead of you shoot, you get an idea of how they compare to you and what their scores are, and then do some rough calculation based on that.
So a for instance would be, my name's Jeff, and I shoot open, and this guy that I shoot against, all the time, he's on the squad in front of me, and he's like, yeah, I shot this stage 15 seconds. And you walk up there and you're like, okay, so-and-so shot it in 15. I'm usually as fast, if not a bit faster, so that kind of informs my understanding what the stage is. Does that sound about right, Jeff?
Yep.
Okay. Does that mean other shooters is your best bank of information, and then other things, my opinion that you'd look for is if there's a lot of movement, if there's unloaded start, if you're picking up magazines off tables, or if the targets get to be far away, all those things drag the hit factor down pretty dramatically. So lots of running means lower hit factors. Close targets with short movements means high hit factors, generally speaking. And then you should have a good idea of what your hit factors generally look like. If you've never shot above well, I guess this will be more to the class thing, but if you've never shot above like a 5 hit factor, or you've never shot above a 7 hit factor, then you don't really expect. If your calculations say the stage should be a 9 hit factor, you might want to think about that and make sure that you think that's right, because that would be a big outlier for you, so to speak. Is that a fair way of looking at it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay, so then the other part of the guy's question I thought was interesting is, Does this change based on what class you are? What do you reckon?
I don't think that's a really good question.
No, I think I'm reading your mind a little bit, Wanzik, and I'm gonna cut right to it. So this video that I put up,
Yeah.
this was mostly informational and a little bit entertainment. If you're in C class or B class, it's almost not even really relevant information. It's all, I mean, adjusting like how many points. I mean, this shit is way too complicated. At that level, shooting as many A's as fast as you can, or A's and close C's, trying to shoot basically in the center of the targets as you work your way through the stages, you know, and run fast when you get an opportunity to run. That's what you need to be doing.
Yes.
This is for where you make decisions on the margins. So if you have the high hit factor, close stage, and you need to go, you know, pop one target at 20 yards, how hard should you be? How hard should you aim at it? How much should you be trying for those A's? Or the reverse situation. You've got a bunch of 25-yard pieces of steel. You know, the stage is taking people forever to shoot. Really low hit factors, but there's like 3 targets that are the 45-degree angled ones at your feet. You know, you should look at that and be like, yeah, you better be getting A's on those targets. You better be, because they're close, they're easy, and this is a low factor stage. That's the kind of decisions you're making here. If you're in B class, you got bigger fish to fry than this, to be honest.
That was exactly where I was going to go with it. Yeah, I go in extremes. If like you knock it out of the park. If it's close in, like hosing stuff, like I'm still going to go for A's and close C's. Like deltas are not ever acceptable. So like maybe I'm going to hit the gas a little bit more. And yes, like you said, something low, or like some like the classifier stuff, or maybe I don't know, like somewhere you're like that one, I don't even know the name, where you're in a chair and you have to stand up and you shoot 2 targets, load and shoot 1 more. It's 1 and 2, whatever that is. Like those kind of where you've got like, you know, like standing up or load all this dead time. Like that's the stuff you need the alphas in. So I just work in it kind of just a general sense, high or low, but anything towards the middle, I'm always going to shoot for A's and close C's. Like that's just the name of the game. So
yeah. All right. So that'd be our read on that. So I just checked. This video is up, and you don't even have to be a training group member to see it if you go to practicalshootingtraininggroup.com. It's going to be, you know, scroll down to the bottom, and it'll be the hit factor and aiming strategy, major versus minor video. It'll remain up. This is February 2019 right now. It'll be up probably through April of 2019, because we have 3 like free videos up, and then we'll put up a new one, and the oldest one will drop off. So you have a few months to get to it. So you hear this podcast maybe in March, and you'll have a while to go get to it and watch it if you haven't seen it and you want to watch it, and you can kind of decide for yourself what you want to do with it. But basically, if you're in B class, don't stress about this. USPSA is not really a math test for you yet.
This is the people for who are who they know what kind of group size they're gonna get, and also this is for somebody who can do walkthrough and shoot predetermined pace in your walkthrough, like not shooting in your visualization. You should be able to predetermine your shooting speed and actually consistently produce that split time and the group size. But for people who are just starting and not practicing, they don't have enough knowledge and they don't have enough consistency to shoot that predetermined pace. Depends on the hit factor.
Of course. But, you know, it's an interesting video.
It is interesting.
Oh, yeah. I mean, at the top levels, at the super squad level, that stuff becomes a consideration. It doesn't really matter too much elsewhere. All right. Well, anyway, thank you guys so much for coming on today. I do really appreciate it. Listeners, if you have a question you'd like the answer to, you can email me. Go to bensteger.com, fill out the contact form, and it'll fire that over to me. So anyway, thank you guys so much for coming.